It's finally happened. After numerous delays and relentless battles with weather, the long-awaited Polaris Dawn mission has blasted off at last. Through SpaceX's live stream and videos, we can see the Dragon and its crew have been through some incredible experiences. So, what remarkable achievements has Dragon and its crew accomplished? And how has it shocked the entire industry? Let's find out in today's episode. On September 10th, at exactly 5:23 a.m. Eastern Time, SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket lifted off from Launch Complex 39A at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. The launch went off without a hitch, successfully sending the Dragon spacecraft carrying the Polaris Dawn crew into low Earth orbit, marking the start of the crew's first day in space. SpaceX provided updates on the crew's activities during day one of the mission. After reaching stable orbit, the four-member crew removed their spacesuits, signaling the official start of their multi-day mission. SpaceX's livestream offered viewers worldwide breathtaking and stunning visuals of the Polaris Dawn mission. One of the most notable moments came at T+15:53 after liftoff, when Dragon began the deliberate process of opening its nose cone. For those unfamiliar, the nose cone is the protective cover on the front of the spacecraft during launch and atmospheric ascent. Underneath the nose cone lies a hatch, so at that point, the spacecraft's interior wasn't exposed. The nose cone was opened because underneath it lies the Reaction Control System (RCS) and the main orbital thrusters. The RCS is crucial for precise attitude and position adjustments in space, while the orbital engines handle larger orbital changes. Another fascinating detail we observed through the livestream was something SpaceX calls the Skywalker. This system, consisting of rails and handholds, is installed at the window in the nose section of the spacecraft. In typical missions to the International Space Station, ISS, this spot would normally host the docking port. However, for the Polaris Dawn mission, the Skywalker plays a crucial role in helping the astronauts move safely inside and outside the spacecraft. Yes, it's designed for the extravehicular activities (EVAs) planned for this mission. On the first orbit, Dragon reached its apogee at an altitude of about 1,216 kilometers. This achievement instantly made Polaris Dawn the highest-flying Dragon mission to date, far exceeding the usual altitude of about 400 kilometers for missions to the ISS. But this is just the beginning of this ambitious mission. As planned, after the crew woke up on flight day 2, Dragon continued its orbital maneuvers. The goal was to raise the spacecraft into an elliptical orbit with a perigee of 190 kilometers and an apogee of 1,400 kilometers. This unique orbit was specifically designed to allow the crew to conduct groundbreaking scientific experiments within the inner Van Allen radiation belt, a region of space that has been largely unexplored by crewed missions. And the historic moment came at 9:19 p.m. Eastern Time, ET, on Tuesday, when SpaceX confirmed that the Crew Dragon spacecraft carrying the Polaris Dawn crew had officially reached its maximum altitude of 1,400.7 kilometers. This marked one of the most impressive moments of the mission. Look at this. The Draco thrusters on the spacecraft forward bulkhead were firing during the burn. Fascinating. You know, back during the peak of the space race, Apollo missions would typically orbit the Earth at an altitude of around 100 miles, 160 kilometers, before heading to the Moon. The previous record for the highest Earth orbit by a crewed spacecraft was held by the Gemini 11 mission in September 1966, which reached an altitude of 853 miles, 1,373 kilometers. Polaris Dawn didn't just break this record. It shattered it. By reaching a maximum altitude of 1,400.7 kilometers, this mission has taken humanity higher in Earth orbit than ever before. But this mission is even more ambitious than that. The Polaris Dawn crew is currently focused on the first-ever spacewalk from a private spacecraft, scheduled for day 3 of the mission. Jared Isaacman, the mission commander, emphasized the importance and the level of risk involved in this activity. The EVA makes up the majority of the risks for Polaris Dawn, he said. Why would it be the riskiest part? Because you're throwing away all the safety of your vehicle, right? It now comes down to your suit becomes your spaceship. Isaacman's comment is no exaggeration. In the history of private spaceflight, no mission has ever exposed the crew directly to the vacuum of space, let alone the entire crew at once. That's why this EVA requires meticulous preparation. In fact, the preparations began from the very first days of the mission. Right after launch, the crew started a pre-breathe protocol to get ready for the spacewalk, scheduled for Thursday, September 12th, at an altitude of 700 kilometers. This pre-breathe protocol, which lasts for 45 hours leading up to the spacewalk, is a crucial step to ensure the crew's safety. During this time, the pressure inside the Dragon capsule is gradually reduced, while the oxygen levels are increased. The goal of this process is to flush nitrogen out of the crew's bloodstream. As you know, removing nitrogen from the blood is essential to minimize the risk of decompression sickness, DCS, during the spacewalk. To put it simply, you can compare the human body to a bottle of carbonated water. When you pop the cap, the pressure inside drops suddenly, and bubbles start forming, creating the familiar fizz. The human body, when exposed to high-pressure environments like deep-sea diving or space, behaves in a similar way. In high-pressure environments, the body absorbs a significant amount of nitrogen from the air or breathing gas mixtures. This nitrogen dissolves in the blood and tissues. But when the pressure drops suddenly, like when a diver surfaces too quickly, or when an astronaut transitions from a high-pressure environment to a low-pressure one, the nitrogen no longer stays dissolved. Instead, it forms gas bubbles in the body, much like the fizzing you see when you open a bottle of soda. These nitrogen bubbles can cause intense pain, nerve damage, and in severe cases, even death. Now, unlike traditional spacewalk missions, the Dragon capsule doesn't have a dedicated airlock. This means that the entire cabin will be exposed to the vacuum of space during the EVA, with no separate life-supporting environment aside from the EVA suits the astronauts will wear. SpaceX developed its own EVA suit in just 2.5 years, an incredibly fast achievement by any standard. Even though they built it off their IVA suit, the speed of this development is still mind-blowing. For comparison, NASA's EVA suit has taken over a decade to develop and still isn't complete. SpaceX's rapid progress really stands out when you look at the usual timelines in this industry. Another critical issue that arises when a spacecraft is exposed to the vacuum of space is outgassing. In a vacuum, materials like adhesives, sealants, and other substances can release gases or chemicals. And if left unchecked, these outgassed substances could pose health risks to the crew. However, the engineers and scientists at SpaceX and Polaris Dawn are well aware of these challenges. Every material used in the spacecraft and the EVA suit has undergone rigorous testing to assess its outgassing potential in a vacuum. High outgassing materials have been replaced with safer alternatives to ensure mission success and crew safety. The upcoming spacewalk is going to be epic. It'll be the first time an all-civilian crew steps out into the vastness of space, a task once reserved for highly trained professional astronauts from national space agencies. This event isn't just a showcase of cutting-edge technology. It's a powerful testament to the brilliance of private sector achievements in space exploration. It highlights the sheer power of innovation and creativity when combined with the resources and vision of private companies like SpaceX. But one thing for sure, this Dragon's mission will cast Boeing in an even darker light. While Boeing's Starliner has not even achieved smooth and fully automated docking with the ISS, SpaceX has successfully executed an EVA independently, without any involvement from any private or governmental organizations, and at a higher altitude than the current orbit of the ISS. The Dragon spacecraft systems have been significantly improved and optimized to ensure maximum safety for the crew. It's immediately clear that SpaceX is igniting a buzz within the community, while Boeing seems to be dodging the public spotlight. From the get-go, it's obvious that Boeing has been completely outclassed in the media arena. SpaceX's advancements and public engagement have left Boeing scrambling to keep up, highlighting the stark contrast in their positions within the aerospace industry. Putting comparisons aside, the research Polaris Dawn's crew will conduct in space is sure to provide invaluable insights into how the harsh environment of space affects the human body. As technology has evolved dramatically since the Apollo era, we now have the chance to gather fresh, more precise data about the Van Allen belts, a region of intense radiation surrounding Earth. While we've gained a fundamental understanding of radiation levels in this area, its real impact on the human body remains a significant question. The Polaris Dawn mission will play a pivotal role in expanding our knowledge. The crew is expected to spend only a few days in space, but during that short time, they'll be exposed to the equivalent radiation of about 3 months on the International Space Station. This creates a unique opportunity to study the effects of high-intensity radiation exposure over a short period on human health. One particularly exciting aspect of Polaris Dawn is the ability to compare its data with the previous Inspiration 4 mission. Both missions used the same type of SpaceX Dragon spacecraft and had kind of similar flight durations. However, Inspiration 4 orbited at a lower altitude, where radiation exposure was significantly less. This difference allows scientists to directly compare the effects of varying radiation levels within the same spacecraft environment. The Polaris mission isn't just a major step forward in space exploration, it's a perfect springboard for future private missions. The experience and data gathered from this mission could open the door for crewed private Starship flights to low Earth orbit (LEO). If the upcoming Starship test flights go smoothly, private missions using Starship could become a reality within the next 3 to 4 years. But that's not all. Bill Gerstenmaier, SpaceX's Vice President of Build and Flight Reliability and former NASA Associate Administrator for Human Spaceflight, emphasized the significance of this mission. The Polaris crew is helping to develop necessary technology needed to go to Mars. The private sector is truly a portion of this great human spaceflight team. Alright, that's it for today. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more in-depth looks at the latest advancements in space technology. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.